Good to have you on again, Matt Thrama.
Mate, it's great to be here. I love what you're doing from afar and the value you're adding back to the community. So, mate, awesome to be here. So, mate, I didn't know the tradition was beer and buying. You know, mate, I would have done one for the team if you needed to.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
no, that's all right, mate. That's all right. I'll break it just for you. So, mate, good to have you on today. What I really wanted to kind of go through today, obviously the first time we went through things is very first home buyer focused.
Yeah.
I noticed that the massive role that the buyer's agent is playing in the market today, just because from my perspective, highly transactional, a lot of great relationships, but I'm noticing more and more that we're seeing buyer's agents pop up in the market. So I'm sort of starting to notice that there's a growth and a need for them. So what I wanted to try and do today was kind of peel back the curtain and take a bit more of a look at it as to what you guys do. And obviously there's a range of different buyer's agents. But first and foremost, like obviously you've just brought on, we were just talking about it before off air, you brought on a new staff member within the team. Do you just want to give us a bit of a breakdown around your current business and what that looks like?
Yeah. So there's about 11 in the team and then a few offshore helping too. And the business is kind of broken down where there's the service delivery side, I guess, of the business. So the people on the ground and the amazing team that, work in with the clients and doing the negotiations and the property. And then we got also behind every business is a great team supporting the business from an operations side, finance, marketing, those sorts of pillars too. So one thing I've learned in, I guess, business as a whole, there's being a buyer's agent and there's being a business owner. It's very hard to do everything for everyone. So probably year 2 into the business, I loved being a buyer's agent, and it was, we'll run off our feet. It was essentially me and one other person, really, and which I loved being a buyer's agent. But then I realized, I was nearly capping myself because there's so many more people that wanted the help. There's no way I could do that on my own. So then I started researching business and scale and stuff like that. And then, so I've actually become nearly obsessed with like business, and that's my new sport now. And just learning the differences. I will chatting off air on like brokers, and I think the same principles with business apply to all different businesses, right? So that's probably the biggest one I've learned, and that's kind of what I've nearly tried to develop. When you ask around the team, it's like, I have nearly 2 clients. The key client is obviously the buyers out there, and we've got a team that support them. And then the buyers agents themselves are nearly my clients too, because I want to make sure they're happy, they're doing their best for the clients out there. And that's the way we can impact more people is through that avenue, I think.
Yeah. And so one thing that I notice in particular with you guys that I think has like a really big value add point as opposed to different buyer's agents, which also have some benefits to it. But one thing that I really love about you guys, and in particularly, maybe I should wind it back a bit because, how me and Sim ended up down the Gold Coast was because of you, helping us buy our place down here. But one thing that I really noticed is like just the really suburb specific, location really matters. And I think, would you mind talking to that a bit? And just one thing I guess I noticed from afar, when going through that process is being like that very location based kind of buyer's agent is the relationships that you have with the likes of the real estate agents. Do you just want to shed some light on I guess the strategy around why you've gone down that avenue?
Yeah. I think if anyone's listening, watching that is thinking about either using a buyer's agent or wants to become a buyer's agent, there's one big thing I like to focus on is really focus on being a specialist, not a generalist. So the way we've kind of grown as a business, you're exactly right, is I had an observation that when the buyer's agents are happier doing what they do, the clients are getting better results. Where people sometimes lose focus or lose interest is where if they're buying properties in areas they don't actually like or enjoy, or even, like who wants to do that? So what I found is the Gold Coast is such a transient place. It's quite a large piece of dirt, right? And there's so many different pockets within the Gold Coast. And what I observed was a lot of our team live in all the different pockets and they live and breathe it.
Yeah.
They know all the cafes I've got no idea around on the north. Like I live in Palmy.
Yep.
We got a team in the north and mate, they live and breathe. They love it. Their kids are in the school. They used to work, Olivia, one of our North Gold Coast specialists, she used to own a cafe in Churn Park. Everyone knows each other there. So they're all in their little bubbles.
Yep.
So I think that's key is just if you are looking to engage a buyer's agent rather than getting just a generalist, I think getting an area specialist is huge because you pretty much nailed it. Number one is the due diligence side of things, understanding what things are worth.
Yep.
Intimately knowing the streets like the back of your hand.
Yep.
Knowing what recent sales have popped through is a huge one. And then the second piece, as you said, is contacts.
Yeah.
A big part of why buyer's agent is very advantageous is the little black book that they can give you access to.
Yeah.
And not just that, it's also the conversations are a lot different too than what some of those contacts would say to the everyday buyer.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of benefits being represented by someone who has those skill sets and those add value points.
Yeah. Do you reckon that, because the Gold Coast is an interesting one, right? Do you reckon that part of those, because obviously I used to live in Brizzy, and I reckon there is a hell of a lot of difference between the two, particularly when you talk about the likes of the pockets. And one thing that springs to mind is obviously like there's a lot of waterways, so it splits up the suburbs a little bit more. So like you might be talking about Currumbin Waters, but you might be on, this side of Currumbin Creek Road. But the other side is, you could have, water views and access to a boat. And do you think that plays a bit of a role into why there is kind of a bit more of a breakdown than maybe a different location, say like maybe than Brisbane?
I think one thing, you're exactly right. I think one thing I've noticed as well about the Gold Coast is that obviously the infrastructure and transport is getting there, but we're well and truly behind the likes of Brisbane, especially Sydney and Melbourne. Like they rely on transport.
Yeah.
Gold Coast, not many people catch the bus. Like I think it's great. I think more people should and use the tram, but not many people do.
You
on
let
the
us have
coast.
that word down here.
Yeah, the tram. I think it's great. Why I think that relates to your question is walkability is everything on the Gold Coast. So
it's all got to do with how far you are from the sand, isn't
literally,
it?
yeah, there's that. And then if your local cafe is within walking distance, you got your cafe, your beach, your supermarket, everything within. People don't leave their bubbles. And that's why the Gold Coast, I feel, is so segmented. It's like, people in Palmy don't leave Palmy and people in Burleigh, same thing. And then you've got up in Paradise Point, I've been up there, people don't leave Paradise Point.
Yeah.
They just kind of stay in their little bubbles. And I think that could be one part of it.
Yeah.
And then number two is the uniqueness of each area, like the versatility and like what each pocket brings in terms of the feeling and the vibe. Like every time I step down into like Rainbow Bay and Kira, I get that relaxed kind of surfy vibe, and then you head up to the north end, near Marina Mirage, and you get that more bougie sort of vibe and restaurants and more that boaty scene. So I don't know. It's just so whatever your tastes are as a human being, there's a pocket that I feel suits it to some degree.
Yeah, and you know what? That just got me thinking because obviously we're talking about the waterways and that sort of stuff. But when you think about it, you could be in a high rise, right on the beach. You could be on the water, like on a canal.
On a canal, yeah.
You could be in a normal resi scenario,
suburban house.
Yeah. Or you could be on acreage out the back of Currumbin.
Yeah.
Like where else in the world could you fit those? And we're talking probably 5-10 minutes drop.
Yeah, I know.
If that between those four different property
that's a good
types.
point, actually.
Which is nuts, isn't it?
That's a really good point. I never thought about that. Yeah.
But so just going back to the buyer's agent side of things, just take us through. Not pretend like I'm a client, but take us through like that process a little bit around what that looks like from your perspective. Onboarding a client, research. Just give us a little bit of a dive into what that looks like from your team's aspect.
Yeah. I think number one, what I say before anything to do with buyer's agent is I mean, this comes from me, right? I don't think a buyer's agent is for everyone. And I've got a little acronym I like to use. It's called ACT, like ACT. I don't think you should act on a buyer's agent until you're approved, number one. So chatting to people like yourself to make sure you're in a position where you know somewhat what you've got to spend, because there's no point in going to buyer's agent blind on budget. They're not going to they can't add too much value there. Number two is clear. So the C is clear. So clear on some sort of criteria, whether it is like in a region or area. If you're coming in super like, I've got no idea where I want to live, that's very hard as well. Like it will take a lot more time to narrow in. And then the T is probably my favorite, is you're in a transitional mindset. And what I mean by that is if you've thought around move, some people haven't actually mentally thought, hey, I actually have to pack up my stuff and move. Also, if it's an investment property, I actually got to depart with some of my money, or say I'm about to enter into another repayment. Like, it all sounds good on paper, but until people actually think about it, some people don't actually ever make the leap because they haven't transitionally been in the right mindset, if that makes sense. So that's what I always say is like, that's number one. Before you even think of a buyer's agent, are you ready to act? So are you approved? Are you clear on what you want? And are you in that transitional mindset? And if you're saying yes to all three of those, then it's like, a buyer's agent can definitely add value. How a buyer's agent adds value, simply, I feel the best is the sourcing side is a huge one. So getting access to property outside of the realms of just your online portals.
And that's the benefit in one of the benefits in potentially location-based, right? Because more than likely, based on the clientele that you've already transacted with certain agents, like, they're going to be letting you know if they've got some stuff. Hey, I've got this one off market that I don't really want to take it to a normal, sale process. So
exactly right. Exactly right. So having those relationships gives you access to more stock, essentially. So stock's a huge one. So the sourcing side. The due diligence is a huge one that I think people often forget. It's just understanding that every property has a story behind it. Every property has risks associated with it. So being able to identify what those are is huge to make a final decision. And then the third is the negotiation piece too. So at the end of the day, like, every sales agent out there is working for the seller, and they're trained negotiators too. So it's always great to have someone else in your corner that's batting for you too. So I find they're probably the big three why people get value out of it. It's understanding the more stock leads to more opportunities, more things to say yes or no to, the ability to, as said, tap into contacts and do that. All around due diligence as well on the property, and then simply the negotiation is a big one. There's a lot of other intricacy, but I find they're always the key ones that add heaps of value to people that are, as I said, in that position where they can act on a buyer's agent.
And are you noticing any particular trends right now in terms of on the Goldie? Like, I feel like, and maybe you're seeing more of this, but one thing I noticed whenever we first got down here, I felt like there was a lot of the go and buy a property, split it, do a duplex. Obviously, there was a lot of that happening. I feel like I'm seeing maybe less and less of that. Maybe that's area specific because I'm not traveling north enough. What sort of trends are you seeing on the Goldie at the moment?
Mate, believe it or not, that is one of the trends. The margin's probably not as fat as it once was for doing a split. It's still there, I'm sure, if you buy well. But just because the Gold Coast has increased in value so much, I'm sensing, in the commentary I get from a lot of developers, small-scale developers, flip and sell people all around the coast, is the duplex, split it, buy a block, cut it, sell off to. The sake of that process, the DAs, the cost of splitting, all of that, it's nearly not there. I'm sensing where a lot of the margins are getting retained now is buying, obviously, in a really good location. You have to nail the location, and then just building a really good family home, like a big home. But when I say big, I don't mean block big or anything. It's just something that's going to appeal to at least the 4-bedroom plus market. At the end of the day, they're the ones who are paying top dollar if it's in a good location.
Yeah.
You're looking at families who are not just want to secure something, they want to, I guess, secure something for the next 5, 10, 15 years, kids at school, start a new chapter of life. That's a lot of emotional things.
Yeah.
Not many of them available. Put them in competition with each other. And then that's why you're getting some of these bigger prices. So if you're someone looking to do maybe a development or a flip and sell on the coast, I think that could be the way to go. Look, you can skin a cat so many different ways, right? But I'm just sensing that's what I'm seeing a lot of the ones do who are continually going again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're probably nailing the process. So like margins may be getting skinnier, but they're so in tune with, what's to come and what's happening. Maybe not great for a first timer at the moment. And obviously the cost of construction's a bit of an issue at the moment.
And the hardest thing as well, mate, is that like the only way to quantify whether it stacks is to look at obviously today's price on what you buy it for.
Yeah.
But then you're looking at yesterday's sales results.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So,
yeah, of course.
Which is really hard. The market has moved so quickly that if you try to quantify a future project on yesterday's, and it's just never going to stack by the looks of it.
No.
So again, some of the best, I guess, renovators or developers that I'm seeing, there's obviously the guaranteed, you got to look at that, but they're also putting in projections on the way the market's moving.
Of course. Because like it's going to be what, 6, 9, 12 months,
exactly.
or depending on DA counts, all that sort of stuff, it's maybe even longer than that, right? Yeah.
And what we're seeing with past trends, and when you ask around trends, is that the market has moved within 12 months quite a bit.
Yeah.
So quite a lot too. So that's what I mean. It's hard to make it stack on what you're buying it for today.
Yeah.
But I think the key is understanding that location will do 80% the heavy lifting. And if you nail that, you can nearly guarantee that the way the Gold Coast is going with all the migration and everything, that it's safer to look at things that way of like a future projection, But one thing is always, you never want to go all out on anything. No. I think the biggest tip I can give for anyone looking to do a development or a project, a flip, is you have to make money on the way in.
Yeah.
You have to make money on the way in because, the margins are just not there. If you're paying at market or slightly above market, taking into account, as we said, like the cost of different trades and materials, blowout costs too is one you always got to factor in. I just think because the market is moving so strongly on the Gold Coast, you have to make money on the way in to make it work.
You've probably got to engage, find a relationship with a town planner as well if you're looking to do something like that, just so you can understand the costs and all the ins and outs before you go and sink money into a property and go, oh, wait a minute, I don't want to necessarily, or I can't do what I want to do, right?
Yeah.
So
all the best ones we've worked with, they come to us like gun loaded. So that includes finance, they got their entity sorted, they got the town planner on speed dial, kind of everything ready to go.
Yeah.
So you pretty much nailed it. Yeah.
Art of the negotiation.
Yeah.
Let's just talk through, and actually, you know what? I'll use what you used for us whenever we got our place, and I just, if you've got the ability, just to give us a couple of insights into maybe things that you've utilized over time.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I think helped get us over the line whenever we bought our place, and one of the beauties was we were super flexible with settlement and getting into the property. But one of the things you utilised was that lease back clause. So we bought the property, or we were trying to buy the property, and you came to us and said, Cole, Sim, this is my idea. The other people who you're buying off, they've bought another property, but they want a little bit more time in the place to be able to move between properties. So I think you said, if we can give them 2 weeks in there, work perfect, lease back period, I think that's going to get you ahead of everybody else. And funnily enough, we did it. It worked. And I just thought up until that point in time, I've been in finance for a fair while now, but I just found it really unique and thinking outside the box. And I feel like settlement's one of those things that you can kind of, if you can work in with the seller or the agent, then sometimes that's something that can kind of get you ahead. Is there any other kind of quirky negotiation skills that you've used over time?
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, negotiation's one of my favorite topics. I love it. And it's such a good one. And probably my overarching tip I can give on negotiation is there's order takers and then there's deal makers. And order takers, I feel, are people who get information from an agent. They absorb the information and then they pass the information on. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. I feel the more successful negotiators and buyers agents are people who can absorb the information, think about a solution that's going to benefit both sides. And it could be solutions outside the norm, right? Yeah. And then, I guess, execute on that. So really good example on your situation is, most people, and mate, it was a while ago now, but it's happened more than once, right? That sort of scenario. It's a common one where people get so fixated on the price. I always say there's price and then there's terms. They're just as important. So in a negotiation, obviously a seller wants their dream price. I mean, everyone wants their inflated price. But I can tell you right now, if you can appeal to their terms, that can significantly improve your chances of getting a property. We've secured many in the past where we've offered a lot lower than what the highest offers were, but we've come up with some sort of random appealing term that suited the seller. And then people always ask, well, that's all good to know. Like, terms count, not just price. Like, how do you find that out? And that's why I say is you have to ultimately be really good at asking great questions. And being curious. So,
and you're talking about with the agent, right?
With the agent, yeah. Because I always say this in negotiation, every property has a story behind it. It's your job as a negotiator to understand that story and then unravel that, put it all on the table, and then the cherry on top is, can I create a win-win scenario for everyone involved? And I think that is the biggest fallback of most buyers agents who don't see success in this industry. They see it as me versus the agent and seller rather than, hey, I'll work with you. Let me try and ask some really good questions to get everything on the table. Appreciate you being transparent around that. Leave me with it. And then I go away and come up with a solution and put it all together.
The secret sauce.
Yeah. And again, that's the difference, I think, between a deal maker and an order taker is you ask great questions, you put it all on the table, and then you kind of come up with a solution for sure. So don't get fixated on price. Just remember there's also terms as well.
And do you reckon that's a buy, like not just buyer's agent, but you reckon that's buyer's downfall as well, as there's too much cat and mouse at play? And I would probably say in particularly first home buyers going in, all right, I want to get a bargain. I don't want to pretend like I like the place. All those things. So I guess I'm really, what you're saying kind of answers that question, doesn't it? It's kind of like, I think people need to be a bit more open and honest and show that they're keen on the property. And it doesn't mean that they're going to end up paying $100,000 more.
Mate, well, one of the best tips I can give to any buyer out there looking in the marketplace on the Gold Coast is the cagier you are as a buyer, I feel it's actually putting you in worse position. If I was a buyer, I mean, I do this for a living, right? And so does our team. My biggest tip is, if you like the property, I'm straight onto the agent and showing intent to buy straight away. Number one. Number two is then if you can show intent, but then, as I mentioned, ask great questions to understand how can I own this property. That's obviously getting the agent's eyes pricked up too. And then third behind that, then what I would do is then, as I said, try and understand things outside of price. Obviously, you've got this advertised at 1.4. totally cool. Just an understanding, is there any, like, settlement wise, like, what's the ideal settlement of your sellers? Like the reason a sale, like, just so I can get a bit of an understanding, what could help.
Yep.
You know, so it's all the dialogue that we use when negotiating is all around help understand, like, an empathetic way, rather than like, mate, why are they selling?
What's wrong with the house?
What's wrong with their house? It's just like
Yeah.
101, poor negotiation. It's going to be back and forth, butting heads. I just love the fact negotiation, you can make it a kind of nearly like a team feeling, but getting great results for your client. I find that is always the best way to buy better, is just being open to having a conversation and thinking, how can you actually help the seller and the seller's client, the agent and the seller's client?
Because everyone's human at the end of the day as well, aren't they? So, like, if you're acting that way towards the agent, it's going to get the agent's nose out of joint. Whereas, I guess if you're open, transparent, and want to know a bit more of the story, then potentially that's going to leave you with knowing a lot more than anyone else that's putting an offer in as well.
Well, I always say this, put yourself in the agent's shoes. If there was two buyers, one was cagey as and just like tonality poor and just at you, you know, those buyers that are just always at the agent, hands folded, like. And then on the other side, you got someone who's coming with good energy, showing intent to buy, asking questions like, hey, awesome property, just understanding, like, is there anything outside of price that could help your vendors?
Yep.
Like, man, you'd be like, I want to work with this person.
And I think, doesn't that also show they seem prepared and they've spoken to someone?
100%. Yeah. Definitely.
We often, and you guys would do this 100 times out of 100, but, you know, we will always speak to our clients about, hey, make sure, you know, we want to make sure your finance terms are really short. We want to make sure they look really strong. Your deposit's really strong. We don't even want you putting down $1,000 or something
definitely.
like that. We want you to make sure you got the solicitor's details down there, because at the end of the day, when you go and make that offer, the agent can only see interactions with you, and the seller can only see what's on that bit of paper. So you've got to put your best representation of you being prepared. You know, you look like you're in a very strong financial position because you've got a really solid deposit.
Yeah.
So I always encourage people to make sure that when they're putting their offers forward, to make sure that, you know, you've got those things set up, so that you're in the best position possible to be able to get a favourable outcome from the agent.
Oh, 100%. You pretty much know it. They're like finance clauses and things that are huge. So if you've got a savvy broker like yourself, because all the ones we've worked with you, they're always sharp. Like it just makes our job so much easier. And like the average buyer doesn't understand having a savvy broker that can let you know, hey, we can put this as 14 or 7 or even 5 day.
Yep.
Dramatically increase. Some brokers won't go to the extra mile to let them know that, you know, and buyers just don't understand why they keep missing out.
Such a competitive, like, market still. Like, I'm finding it. And maybe we can talk to that a little bit, but I just feel like, unless they're using a buyer's agent, which obviously is going to, you know, you guys do a tremendous job of sorting that framework out so that, you know, everything along those lines is perfect. But for any clients out there, a lot of our first home buyers, they're obviously not necessarily using buyer's agents because they're scraping the money together to make it happen. But, you know, I feel like as a broker, you're really doing a disservice to your client if you're not taking them through that whole process, like from start to finish. They could walk in, any client could walk in anywhere and go and get a home loan.
Yeah.
They could walk into a bank. They could walk into an Aussie. They could walk into a Mortgage Choice. They could walk into wherever. They could probably get one online if they wanted to. What separates a good broker in all of that, I think, is just working through the chaos with them. It's like, yeah, cool. Okay. Part one, get the loan. Let's make sure that's nice and seamless. But okay, how do we actually get you into a property? And, you know, for us, it's giving out property reports, certainly not as detailed as what you guys do. You guys get real up-to-date data. You know, we're using Core Logic, which is, you know, a little bit further behind. But it's kind of like giving them property reports, giving them advice. Hey, if you need to put an offer in, give us a call. Like, I think you've got to I think any good broker has got to be doing that these
Yeah.
days, so that they can put their clients in the best position possible to actually be able to get a property.
Yeah.
Because in this market, I just don't feel like, I think that there's almost got to be an element of luck
Yeah.
that someone buys without that advice, other than obviously them listening to your
Yeah.
podcast or anyone else's out there that's kind of talking through these sorts of things. So,
Yeah. I always say the 2025, the Gold Coast market, it's still competitive. And I think where buyers are going wrong is they're not getting seats at the table. So the way they can get more seats at the table is being a sharper buyer coming into the property. So again, having sharper finance, as you said, making sure all your ducks are lined up before going in. One of my favorite tips I can give to any buyers who want seats at tables is instead of offering like via text or, the letter of offer form and stuff like that, walk to the agent and just say, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, can I have a copy of the formal contract? I'd love to submit an offer, a formal offer.
it's a good idea.
I know, and it's crazy how many buyers don't do it. 9 times out of 10, if it's a great agent, they'll go, sweet, all right, I'll email you right away.
And
The
Billy,
different-
Billy does that well too. Like I remember Billy
Yeah.
talking about that. Like, and maybe that's a protection of his client side of things. Is he'll actually get people to
Mate.
submit their offers through contracts.
Yeah.
So like, there's a commitment there.
Mate, it's crazy. It baffles me too how many sales agents sometimes don't offer that. I'd be straight onto that. So the biggest tip I can give out there to any Gold Coast buyer is if you've got interest in a property and you like it, first step is walk over to the agent and say, Mr. and Mrs. Agent, can I have a copy of the formal contract? Here's my email. How soon could you get it to me? As soon as that's in, I'd be putting in that initial offer straight away, getting it all signed. Obviously, doing your due diligence first because
Yep.
it is formal. Have your solicitor ready to review it. And if they're happy, submit. And the key though is, and it's probably one of my favorite negotiation tips, is your first offer doesn't have to buy the property. If I've shown intent to the agent on a formal contract, the price might not be what they want.
Yep.
But I can tell you right now, an agent who had 40 people come through on the open home, the one who submitted a formal offer and it's signed,
Yep.
I'm telling you right now, the good agents are negotiating with that person that day.
Yeah.
So if you want to, again, as I said, get a seat at the table and not be another one of these deflated buyers who said there's 50 people at the open home and I'm just wasting my time and my letter of offer is at the bottom of the pile. It probably is.
Yeah. Yeah.
I reckon go get a formal offer, get your solicitor ready, review it, put your offer in.
Yep.
It's formal. If the agent comes back to you and says, hey, nice try, not a great price, leave it at that. Mr. and Mrs. Agent, what sort of price could get it done today? Just ask them. I don't know why people don't ask.
Can we clip this up, please?
Yeah, I don't know why people don't ask them.
Yeah.
And just theoretically speaking, they say, well, I've had pricing conversations. Sounds like 2 million could get it done today.
Yep.
And honestly, I say, cool. Could they countersign on that same piece of paper I gave you? Could they countersign that? So, yeah. Okay. Countersign, bang. We're in a negotiation
Yeah.
now. We're shutting the door. We're not even worrying about all these other buyers. So
Yep.
that is my biggest tip I
Amazing.
give. Even if you're not seeing value at 2 million, whatever it may be, at least you know where the other side is at. The smoke and mirrors are letters of offers and put your best foot forward and you tell me what it's worth. You throw like how's a Gold Coast buyer supposed to know? So
yeah.
that's my biggest tip is put in a fair, strong offer on a formal contract. Maybe it doesn't buy it. Maybe request a countersign formally from the seller. See where they're at. There's your margin of gap.
Yeah.
That gap could be really small. It could be really big. At least you know as a buyer out there in the marketplace, you're isolated now. You're not one of the other 50 buyers. You're literally on contract. You're an initial away from owning it.
Yeah.
So that is the easiest tip I can give in terms of getting a foot in the door in a busy market like the Gold Coast.
Mate, that's gold. Far out. We'll definitely be clipping that up
Clip
and
it.
punching it out. So one other thing I wanted to touch on there, which you mentioned before, really strong, fair offer.
Yes.
So let's just talk about that really quickly and
It's a good topic too. Yeah.
So and I won't steal your thunder. I'm going to let you roll with this. But like, what would be your advice to someone? Where would they start to look? Like, I'll buyer's agent, obviously.
Yeah.
But let's say no buyer's agent. Like, where would they start to look to go? Okay, what do I reckon this property's worth?
Yeah, great question. One of my biggest tips with initial offers in formal contracts is there's a zone. There's a zone. There's too much on the opening offer because you just shot yourself in the foot. But there's also probably what most buyers do is they come in way too low.
Yeah.
And my suggestion always to buyers is don't do that, because all you're doing is wasting not only the seller's and agent's time, you're making yourself look like a time waster, and you're not going to be treated seriously. So that's where the importance of quantifying value before putting an offer in is huge. When you ask me how do you quantify value, I'd say the biggest one is obviously comparable sales. Number one.
Yep.
Number two is.
Do you want to just digest that a little bit? Comparable sales.
Yep.
Like, give us a.
Yeah. So comparable sales is essentially, I'd go on easy way for everyday buyer, realestate.com. You click sold section, and then in the filters section, just put in the last 90 days. To be honest, the last 30 days on the Gold Coast, because it's moving so quick. My biggest tip with sales data like that, though, is remember it's a lagged data.
Yeah.
Lag data. So a lot of those properties you're seeing are sold are now settled. Some of those settlements were 90 days.
Yeah.
So where I see
contract signed.
Yeah. So what I see buyers get stuck is they see a property similar, comparable. They'd say comparable, 3 beds, 2 bath. It's also in Currumbin. This one's in Currumbin.
Yep.
This one sold in January for 1.6.
Yep.
Mine looks similar. It's now March. Surely 1.6. What they don't know, though, is that property went under contract back in November or even spring.
Yep.
And it's only settled and become available as data in January. So that's a big one. I always say is a lot of buyers are chasing the tail. So unless you know intimately what that property is somewhat worth, you'll always be in that loop of like, that doesn't make sense on the data. It's because the data's so lagged. So that's a huge one. So how would you find up-to-date data? I think is the big one. That's where relationships are key.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're following and you press that little star and you're keeping track of the market, as soon as it sells, I'd be straight on the agent. Hey, just wondering, how'd that go? Is it unconditional? Can you reveal what it sold for?
Yep.
Sale price, and then you can note that down somewhere yourself and just
Instagram.
Check their Instagram, and then what you'll find is you'll see trends then, like current trends. I'd even be asking, was it like Mr. and Mrs. Agent? That seems solid, or what do you think of that price?
Yeah.
Oh no, Brit standard, or no, that was wild. It was a family from Sydney, like crazy. It was a crazy auction, so you can get an idea, or like maybe that was a bit abnormal. And then that's probably the biggest way you'll identify kind of a zone on what it's worth.
Do you think that there's a benefit then in reaching out to those agents in those areas that you're potentially looking at? Like, I mean, that's obviously the one great piece of advice is following the trends and following what sold and speaking with agents off the back of that. But potentially maybe there's a relationship to strike up
huge
there as well.
Oh, massive, yeah.
Knowing that they've got an active buyer that's got
definitely.
Well, any good agent would probably go, that one sold for this, or what are you looking to do?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, all the good ones. Yeah, they'll tell you for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what sales agent doesn't like boasting about their sale price? So they'll definitely let you know.
Yeah.
So you can kind of gather some information there, but I think the biggest one that's comparable sales just on sale price.
Yeah.
I think a big one as well is understanding the other quantifiable relationship between sale price. So a big one we always look at is land size is obviously one. Yeah. Obviously location's a huge one. I wouldn't be comparing things to other suburbs.
That's why pockets.
Yeah.
The pockets are so
huge.
important, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't even. Yeah, exactly right. So, Currumbin waters. If you're looking in Currumbin waters, I'd try and stick to only Currumbin water sale because the data will be so different.
Yeah.
So just stick to like a radius. I'd even do a map radius of 1 to 2 kilometers around the
Where
property
you're
you're looking at.
Yeah.
Yeah, that can kind of give you a bit more direction. Obviously, beds, bath, auxiliary benefits is a huge one buyers forget. So any upgraded renovations is huge. So maybe additional 3rd bedroom, 4th bedroom, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's fully new kitchen. They've all got a cost, a
Yes.
replacement cost as well. So that throws into it. And then key little ones like aspect is big on the Gold Coast. North facing, south facing, pool, no pool, natural light, no natural light. I think they all play a part too. But my biggest, I guess, overarching thing on quantifying value is at the end of the day, the market dictates what the value is. You can understand what a property's worth in a vicinity.
Yeah.
I don't think you could ever quantifiably say this is worth this to the dollar.
Yeah.
Because Rosie from Sydney, who's moving up here because her kids are about to go into PBC and she needs a home by January, versus the investor locally who's been here 20 years and knows the market back of his hand, they're seeing value differently.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's also one thing you also got to understand is who are you as the buyer? Are you looking, is this for capital gain or cash flow, or is this to start a family or upgrade the house you've finally been looking for to finally have a pet? That means something, and that comes at a cost to people.
Yep.
So you have to understand what that cost is to you.
Yeah. 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 It's a good point. A lot of good points in there. All right. We'll look to wrap in. I'll give you one more question. Try and give you one more question.
Yeah.
Buyer's agent, as I sort of said at the start, I've noticed, I don't know the data around it actually, but I've noticed that I feel like a lot more people are using them in Australia. Obviously, there's a big comparison to the US where it's like a very large portion of the population utilize a buyer's agent as part of the process. As people within Australia, I do feel like our time is becoming more and more important, and people are getting more and more time poor. Where do you kind of see the industry? Because I've noticed there's a lot more buyers agents in the market, probably more than there ever has been. Where do you kind of see the industry in the next sort of 5-10 years down the track?
I think number one is understanding it is on the rise. Like we had REA come in. It's one of the most trended Google keywords search now is buyer's agent. So a lot more people are looking for it. Like they showed the actual graph and it was like bang, like in the last 5 years.
Wow.
Like it spiked in the last 2 years.
Is that any like suburbs? Sorry. To
that was, I think, nationwide, just
right.
as a general REA.
Yep.
They looked on a Google search word. So the word buyer's agent in the last 2 years has spiked dramatically. I think it's because of 3 key things. I think a lot of people want to save more time. They want to save on stress and they want to save on money.
Yeah.
And I feel those 3 in particular are most of the pain points of a home buyer. They get overwhelmed of the process and they get more stress and overwhelmed of all the different properties or lack of.
Yeah.
Time, I just think for some reason we all are busier these days, and I reckon it's just because everyone's on their phones more now and everyone's texting you and distraction. Everyone's just busy. It's insane how many time poor people we get who are just I can't put the attention on finding a home.
Yeah.
Like I'm just busy with work, my business, whatever it may be. And then price, obviously want to save on money. So they might not be as confident in the negotiation after some of those things. I mean, like there's an art to it, right? So you can definitely save money there too. So I think the rise is coming from those 3 things. More people are getting stressed. More people are time poor. More people don't want to overpay for something that they feel they could have bought cheaper. I think that's a big one. At the end of the day, I think as well, we're living in a society where we're outsourcing a lot more. So, I mean, Uber, like all these things, we can just call someone and they'll do it for us, or
dangerous.
Like shopping, like click and collect.
Yeah.
Get
dropped off at your house.
Just everything's like home now. Like here's my criteria. Can you do it? So I just feel we're in that economy. Some people still love it, and there'll always be a place for those people to do it on their own. And that's why I say buyer's agent is not for everyone.
Yeah.
But for the people it is for, it adds so much value, in my opinion. That's why I've been so passionate about the industry and trying to upskill it, because the last piece I'll finish on is just like brokers, like you said, there's buyer's agents and there's buyer's agents.
Yeah.
So there's cheap ones and there's expensive ones. One thing I say in buyer's agent world, you get what you pay for. You get what you pay for.
Yeah.
It's not buying a pair of shoes, it's buying a home. So I always use the analogy just like a car, right? Like you got a Mitsubishi and you got a Porsche. At the end of the day, they're effectively getting you from A to B, right?
Yeah.
But the experience getting there is like far different. And being someone who loves business, and I've seen all different buyers agents business because I help do some mentoring, there's a lot of different things. The more expensive buyers agents definitely have a lot more kind of nuts and bolts that help the, I guess, process move versus cheaper. I'd just be mindful if you're going cheaper option, you generally will get cheaper result as well, like in terms of like maybe not the right asset for you. So that's my only tip there. But mate, it's great to see the industry evolving, which is great. It's been interesting as well with AI too. Like I keep an eye on AI, and there's some companies that I think real estate salespeople, buyers, I just think, and brokers too, I just think they're just those industries where you still need a human attachment to it. At some point, we're using AI a fair bit more now for processes and streamline.
Yep.
But in terms of replacing a full process that an AI can just buy a house, it could happen one day, 100%, just like selling a home or doing your loan.
Yeah.
I just think that human element to strategically
Yeah.
kind of, and people still want to talk to someone, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's when you're dealing with money, there's a lot of emotion involved as well.
Definitely.
Especially like
true.
it's the most money, more than likely, it's the most money that someone's going to spend on something. So I think that trust is
true.
paramount, right?
That's true.
So, but you're right. Maybe we'll get to a stage of society and
maybe me and you are out of jobs.
Yeah.
Yep.
maybe.
Nice.
There was one point that you just made before that I just want to touch on really quickly. And it was more me just advocating for the cost thing. Because that's something that comes off a lot with buyer's agent. Oh, well, I've got to pay a fee to utilize, right? Fee for service. Just speaking on my own experience really quickly, our budget was quite a bit more than what we end up paying for that property. And I know when you guys sent me through the property initially, I was like, we can't afford it. And so the cost that we are paid to utilize the Serama Group services, like I should put this correctly, we would have spent a shitload more on it and handed over way more money than if we would have utilized the buyer's agent service, which was you guys in this instance. So the only thing I'll say to anybody out there that maybe isn't so confident, has maybe had a go and hasn't quite worked out, go and find a really good buyer's agent to help you through that process, because you will be surprised how much you potentially could save, and also the peace of mind as well, knowing what you're paying for the property stacks up from a value standpoint.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, it's definitely one. Like I'm never one to boast. Oh yeah, we'll save you this amount. Or, like we see, obviously we do this day, and I just see the things our team are buying. I'm just like, man, if that client did it themselves, like there's no way they're getting it for that. Like, you know, and it's not just a little bit. It's like when you put in the scheme of things, it's, you know, potentially 6 figures and above. But honestly, what I've noticed, yes, there's the saving on money on that price. Where I've noticed the last 12 months, the real benefit of BAs and the good ones, to put it bluntly, is that they get you in the market before getting priced out of the market. So what I mean by that is there's buyers right now on the Gold Coast who their inability, I guess, to negotiate, quantify value, like do all these processes quickly, due diligence, have confidence to take the leap, is actually costing them, based on the growth rates. We've worked that out, anywhere on a $1 million purchase at 11%, you know, you're looking at nearly 10 grand, right? The market has moved in the last 12 months on average on the rough price point anywhere from sort of 9 to 13K a month.
Wow.
So every month you are out of the market,
It's costing
you're nearly
you.
costing you.
Yeah.
So again, I don't promote any of that stuff, but just from the back end, I'm like, man, some of these people, it's 6 months. They've cost themselves that much, and now they're going to their broker either asking for more or they wanted to be in Rabina Varsity, and now they're unfortunately got to go to Logan or nothing against Logan, by the way, but yeah, you know what I mean? It's just they're maybe in an area that I didn't originally want.
No.
Yeah.
And I mean, we could probably talk for hours, mate, because, you know, then you start to tack on, if we look in the current environment, then you start to tack on interest rate reductions.
True, yeah.
You know, there's going to be an election soon. I know that sometimes mean there's a bit of a slowdown, but, you know, the RBA are also saying that there's potentially going to be drops after that election. So, you know, with that comes people being able to borrow more money. You know, I personally feel like I've seen a lot of strength in the market when we had those couple of holds on the interest rates.
Big time,
you just sort of started to see it all come back. Now there's been a drop. I just think it's going to transcend into going in that direction of it's just going to keep going up and up and up. It's not to say to force anyone or scare anyone, hey, quickly jump into the market, but I would say that anyone's that is considering doing it and having a crack, that now's probably a really good time. So
yeah, definitely.
Mate, thank you so much. Appreciate your time. You guys are absolutely crushing it. I'm really excited to see what you guys do for the rest of this year. And, mate, appreciate you having me on the podcast.
No, mate, thanks for having me on Sparkling and
and buying. Cheers, mate. Cheers.